The Aguja Formation, located in northern Mexico and parts of western Texas, dates back to the late Cretaceous period, around 81 to 77 million years ago. During this time, the region was part of the western edge of the Western Interior Seaway, a vast inland sea that split North America in two. The climate was warm and humid, supporting lush vegetation and a mix of ecosystems ranging from coastal plains to tropical forests. Geologically, the Aguja Formation is made up of sandstones, mudstones, and shales, indicating a dynamic environment shaped by both marine and terrestrial influences. This mix occurred because the shoreline shifted over time due to changing sea levels, creating zones where land and sea overlapped, ideal for preserving fossils from both environments. As a result, the Aguja Formation captures a rare snapshot of an ancient world where dinosaurs roamed near the sea and marine creatures thrived just offshore. Members of Sabal genus that still exist today are typically identified by the leaves which originate from a bare, unarmed petiole in a fan-like structure. From shell isotope studies, it is thought that Baculites inhabited the middle part of the water column, not too close to either the bottom or surface of the ocean. In some rock deposits, Baculites are common, and they are thought to have lived in great shoals. However, they are not known to occur so densely as to be rock-forming, as do certain other extinct, straight-shelled cephalopods. The shell of Pachydiscus is compressed and high-whorled, with an oval or flat-sided section. Ribs tend to be differentiated into short umbilical and separate ventrolateral sets, with a smooth area between. They are perceived to have been pelagic predators of other oceanic organisms. Of course, many fish species have been found, including numerous ray teeth. These types of animals typically bury themselves in sandy sea floors, giving us an idea of the bottom of this shallow ocean. Rhombotus species could reach a length of 75 to 100 centimeters. This genus is known from its caudal spines and rhombic teeth, which are all that usually fossilizes. These rhombic teeth are bilobate, with vertical wrinkles and a width of about 1.5 centimeters. Rhinobatos was a bottom-dwelling fish that likely lived in shallow coastal waters, where it used its flattened body to blend into the sandy seafloor. Like its modern relatives, it probably fed on small invertebrates such as crustaceans and mollusks, using its specialized jaws to crush hard shells. Its body shape and behavior suggest it was well adapted to a calm, warm marine environment, typical of the shallow seas present during the late Cretaceous in the Aguja region. Squatina was a flat-bodied predator that likely lay camouflaged on the seafloor, ambushing prey with sudden bursts of speed. Its broad pectoral fins and sand-colored skin helped it remain hidden in the shallow, sandy marine environments of the Aguja Formation. Like today's angel sharks, it probably fed on fish and small invertebrates, using its powerful jaws to snap upward at unsuspecting prey. Cartilaginous fish fossilize very poorly due to their skeletal structure, which is why we mainly find only the teeth from this branch of life. Ischyrida had a large, toothed rostrum closely resembling that of a modern-day sawfish. Despite formerly being classified within a family of extinct sawfish-like rays known as Sclarirhynchidae, phylogenetic analyses indicate that Ischyrida and Onchopristis form a distinct clade that groups closer with the extant family Ragidae, which contains the true skates, possibly rendering the suborder Sclarirhynchoideidea paraphyletic. Many shark species also thrived in these warm Cretaceous waters. Some genera still exist today, with teeth that closely resemble those of modern species. Unlike modern goblin sharks, which inhabit deep ocean waters and are sluggish opportunistic feeders that feed on benthic fish and invertebrates, Scapanorhynchus appears to have been a pelagic apex predator that inhabited the epipelagic zone or continental shelf. An isotopic analysis of its teeth suggests that it largely preyed on fish and occupied a high trophic level in its ecosystem. Its active predatory lifestyle may have made it more susceptible to the ecological impacts of the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event. Hybodus had a sleek, streamlined body much like modern sharks, featuring two dorsal fins of nearly equal size. As with other hybodontiforms, its dorsal fins bore dentinous spines, which in Hybodus were marked by rib-like patterns near the tips and rows of hooked denticles along the back edge. Males had claspers, reproductive organs used to transfer sperm directly into the female, similar to those seen in present-day sharks. Hybodus is believed to have been an active predator, capable of chasing down fast-moving prey, primarily cephalopods and, to a lesser extent, fish. Fossilized stomach contents suggest it may have been more agile and predatory than some of its relative. Cretalamna was a medium to large-sized shark. Fossil evidence is found in deposits representing a diverse set of marine environments, indicating that it was able to adapt to a wide range of habitat. This may have attributed to its ability to exist through a long temporal range. The fusiform body of Cretalamna suggests it was a pelagic shark. Squalicorax was a coastal predator, but also scavenged as evidenced by a Squalicorax tooth found embedded in the metatarsal bone of a terrestrial hadrosaurid dinosaur that most likely died on land and ended up in the water. Other food sources included turtles, mosasaurs, ichthyodectids, and other bony fishes and sea creatures. Tooth marks from this shark have also been found on the bones of Pteranodon, but whether the shark actively snatched such large pterosaurs out of the air, attacked them as they dove after prey, or was simply scavenging is not known. The bony fish species present more complete and interesting fossils to observe. While some are known only from jaw fragments, others are nearly complete. Atractosteus first appeared during the late Cretaceous, having diverged from Lepisosteus earlier in the Cretaceous. It quickly achieved a widespread distribution throughout the rest of the Cretaceous and survived the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event, being recovered from strata dated to just a few thousand years after the extinction event, making it the oldest known articulated vertebrate fossil from the Cenozoic. Fossils of various Enchodus species have been found all over the world, and they seem to have been very common and important members of ancient marine ecosystems, occupying mid-level carnivore niches and in turn being eaten by other predators. Their remains have been identified within the preserved stomach contents of marine reptiles such as plesiosaurs and mosasaurs, as well as sharks and hesperornithian birds. We now leave the marine ecosystem and move closer to the shoreline, where animals with a more amphibious lifestyle, such as turtles and crocodiles, begin to appear. Amongst Nanciunculaeids, Basilemys is considered to be most similar to tortoises. Many paleontologists have described the behaviors of Basilemys to likely be comparable to that of tortoises, due to living in terrestrial habitats and consuming tough plants. It is easily distinguishable from other fossil turtles due to how thick its shell is, the intricate sculpture of rows of triangular tubercles separated by pits, and its reduced inframarginal scales. Chupacabrachelys had a particularly unusual skull for a turtle, narrow and triangular and slightly flattened, with elongated eye sockets. The paleontologists who described Chupacabrachelys thought the overall shape was vaguely reminiscent of a canid, and so that ended up inspiring its name, a reference to the mangy coyotes that are occasionally mistaken for the mythical chupacabra. As an early sea turtle, Terlinguachelys already showed several characteristics typical of modern sea turtles. These included a dorso-ventrally flattened body, a comparatively large head with a short neck and the iconic flattened paddle-like arms that sea turtles distinctly possess. However, some anatomical differences identify the turtle as a more basal member of the sea turtle superfamily. Although Deinosuchus was far larger than any modern crocodile or alligator, with the largest adults measuring 10.6 meters in total length, its overall appearance was fairly similar to its smaller relative. It had large, robust teeth built for crushing, and its back was covered with thick hemispherical osteoderms. One study indicated Deinosuchus may have lived for up to 50 years, growing at a rate similar to that of modern crocodilians, but maintaining this growth over a much longer time. It lived on both sides of the western interior seaway, and was an opportunistic apex predator in the coastal regions of eastern North America. Deinosuchus reached its largest size in its western habitat, but the eastern populations were far more abundant. Opinion remains divided as to whether these two populations represent separate species. Deinosuchus was probably capable of killing and eating large dinosaurs. Ankylosaurs were traditionally viewed as having a generic method of feeding due to their simple teeth, stiff skulls, and unspecialized musculature, comparable to modern iguanid. However, unlike iguanids, ankylosaurs frequently have significant tooth wear, sometimes all the way down to the base of the crown. Nodosaurids normally have oblique wear facets on teeth, in Panoplosaurus having a single wear facet per tooth which changes angulation across the tooth row, going from subvertical at the snout to nearly horizontal at the back of the mouth. This differs from ankylosaurids, but may be due to the alignment of teeth between the upper and lower jaws, instead of a difference in form of mastication. The large spikes of Edmontonia were probably used between males in contests of strength to defend territory or gain mates. The spikes would also have been useful for intimidating predators or rival males, passive protection, or for active self-defense. The large forward-pointing shoulder spikes could have been used to run through attacking theropod. Rings in the petrified wood of trees contemporary with Edmontonia show evidence of strong seasonal changes in precipitation and temperature. This may hold an explanation for why so many specimens have been found with their armor plating and spikes in the same position they were in life. According to Coombs, Euoplocephalus may have had cursorial abilities on par with those of the modern rhinoceros and hippopotamus. Based on the form of the humerus shoulder articulation and the arrangement of the protracting muscles of the upper arm, it appears that the upper arm sloped away from the body. The tail club of ankylosaurids has often been interpreted as a defensive weapon. In Euoplocephalus, the presence of ossified tendons only with the distal half of the tail may support such a function. Because only the distal half of the tail was stiffened by tendons, the anterior half could still move freely from side to side. Malefica is an hadrosaurid dinosaur, and like other hadrosaurs, it was herbivorous, processing plant matter with their broad beaks and battery of teeth in the back of the mouth. It could grow to around 6 meters in length, and weighed about 1 ton. The discovery of Malefica helped to understand the distribution of hadrosaurs in Cretaceous, as well as evolutionary lineages between basal hadrosaurs and the more derived saurolophid. The nasal crest of Kritosaurus, whatever its true form, may have been used for a variety of social functions, such as identification of sexes or species and social ranking. There may have been inflatable air sacs flanking it for both visual and auditory signaling. As a hadrosaurid, Kritosaurus would have been a large bipedal quadrupedal herbivore, eating plants with a sophisticated skull that permitted a grinding motion analogous to chewing. Its teeth were continually replacing and packed into dental batteries that contained hundreds of teeth, only a relative handful of which were in use at any time. Plant material would have been cropped by its broad beak and held in the jaws by a cheek-like organ. Feeding would have been from the ground up to around 4 meters above. Aquilarhinus had a prominent humped nose that seems to have been an evolutionary prelude to the larger and much more elaborate crests found in later hadrosaurs. It also had an unusually wide and shovel-like beak, unlike any other known hadrosaur, which was probably a specialization for a different diet than its relatives. Since it lived along coastal marshlands, it may have used its broad jaws to scoop up large mouthfuls of soft vegetation, or, much like the shovel-tusker proboscideans that were once thought to have a similar lifestyle, it may actually have been doing something else entirely with that beak. Angulomastacator is known from a single specimen, a partial left maxilla. This bone is curved down approximately 45 degrees at its anterior end, with the tooth row bent to fit, unlike any other hadrosaur. The unusual characteristics of the maxilla, which have not been reported from elsewhere, supports the hypothesis that the dinosaurs of the Aguja Formation were endemic forms. It was discovered in the upper shale member of the Aguja Formation, among plant, bone, and clam fragments in a bed interpreted as the deposits of a small tributary channel. Stegoceras was a small, bipedal herbivore known for its thick, dome-shaped skull, which could be up to 10 centimeters thick. This bony dome may have been used in head-butting behavior, either for defense or competition between individuals. It had a lightweight build, long legs, and a stiff tail, making it agile and well-suited for quick movements through dense vegetation. Stegoceras likely fed on low-growing plants, seeds, and fruits, occupying a niche as a forest-dwelling browser. Its size and speed would have helped it evade predators in the diverse late Cretaceous ecosystems it inhabited. Texacephale was, like other pachycephalosaurids, a small, bipedal herbivore. The thickened dome, formed by the fused frontals and parietals, with contributions from other bones of the skull, would have meant that the brain was covered by several inches of solid bone. The dome is likely to have been used in head-butting contests over mates and/or territory, similar to modern head-butting species such as bighorn sheep, Cape buffalo, and musk oxen. Damage to the skull bone may have been sustained during combat. Yehuecauhceratops was a small ceratopsid. With a length of about 3 meters, the type specimen was likely a late subadult or adult, judging by the degree of fusion in the vertebra. Smaller to the other two ceratopsids in its environment, the three may have been ecologically segregated. The environment Yehuecauhceratops lived in, corresponding to the lower part of the upper Aguja Formation, would have been a freshwater to brackish coastal marsh and floodplain that were part of a river delta. Sediments also record the presence of oxbow lakes and some coastal marine deposit. Considered by paleontologists Lucas, Sullivan and Hunt to be distinct enough from the Chasmosaurus type species, Chasmosaurus belly to warrant being split off to a new genus, Agujaceratops. A certain niche partitioning is suggested by the fact that Chasmosaurus had a longer snout and jaws, and might have been more selective about the plants it ate. The function of the frill and horns is problematic. The horns are rather short, and the frill had such large fenestrae that it could not have offered much functional defense. Paul suggested that the beak was the main defensive weapon. It is possible that the frill was simply used to appear imposing or conceivably for thermoregulation. The frill may also have been brightly colored, to draw attention to its size or as part of a mating display. However, it is difficult to prove any sexual dimorphism. Like other ceratopsids, Agujaceratops was a four-legged plant eater. The elaborate frill and horns suggest a complex social life, perhaps involving displays towards and fights with other members of the species over territory or mating. Multiple individuals are found in a single quarry. It is unclear whether this represents animals brought together by a drought or flood event, or perhaps a herd. The habitat Agujaceratops lived in, at least where the fossil material was found, may have been a swamp, due to the nature of the sediment. Sauronithilus is thought to have had a keen sense of smell, due to its skull suggesting an unusually large olfactory bulb. The second premaxillary teeth may have been structurally specialized for preening feathers. This may also have been the function of the unusual premaxillary teeth of the basal Oviraptorosaurs. Sauronithilus' feeding habits were discovered to be typical of coelurosaurian theropods, with a characteristic puncture and pull feeding method. At least a few studies have speculated a piscivorous lifestyle for Richardoesthesia, due to its vast distribution as well as predominance in marine sight. It has been used as a morphotaxon to describe other theropod teeth widely displaced in time and space from the type species. If all teeth assigned to the genus are truly reflective of the animal's biology and taxonomic state, it would have been one of the longest-lasting dinosaur genera, perhaps also being the most widely distributed. Dromaeosaurus differs from most of its relatives in having a short, massive skull, a deep mandible and robust teeth. The teeth tend to be more heavily worn than those of its relative Sauronithilus, suggesting that its jaws were used for crushing and tearing rather than simply slicing through flesh. Some estimated that it had a bite nearly 3 times as powerful as that of Velociraptor, and suggested it relied more on its jaws than on the sickle claw to kill its prey. It was heavily built, more so than other dromaeosaurs that are similar in size. Troodon was a small, bird-like theropod with a slender body, long legs, and large eyes, features suggesting it was a fast, agile predator with good night vision. It likely fed on a mix of small animals, eggs and possibly plants, making it an opportunistic omnivore within its ecosystem. Its relatively large brain-to-body ratio hints at complex behavior and keen senses. However, the identity of Troodon remains uncertain, as many fossils attributed to this genus may actually belong to several closely related species. Chirostenotes was probably an omnivore or herbivore, based on evidence from the beaks of related species like Caenagnathes. In 2005, Phil Center and Michael Parrish published a study on the hand function of Chirostenotes and found that its elongated second finger with its unusually straight claw may have been an adaptation to crevice probing. They suggested that it may have fed on soft-bodied prey that could be impaled by the second claw, such as grubs, as well as unarmored small vertebrates. However, if Chirostenotes possessed the large primary feathers on its second finger that have been found in other oviraptorosaurs, it would not have been able to engage in such behavior. Like with other oviraptorosaurs, Leptorhynchos would have been a bipedal theropod, probably with feathers. Rather than a mouth full of sharp teeth, Leptorhynchos would have had a toothless beak which could have been used in eating either plants or small animals, making the exact dietary preference of Leptorhynchos near impossible to determine at this time. It is noted for its small size, a beak that upturns slightly at the tip, and the deepness of the mandible. Not much is known about the appearance of Alphodon, as it is only known from teeth, a lower jaw and skull fragments. It probably grew to about 30 centimeters and may have resembled a modern opossum. Judging from its teeth, it was likely an omnivore, feeding on fruits, invertebrates and possibly small vertebrates. Alphodon had a very good sense of smell and sight to track down its food, both during the day and night. Its possible whiskers could have also aided in its search for food.